Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Nicholas Mutinda from Nairobi branch. In this video we will be continuing where we left. Remember we are discussing about principles of management. This is the third chapter where we will be discussing about the management functions. Management functions, as we said in chapter 1, is that there are 6 in number. So we'll start with the first one, which is planning. So chapter 3, management functions. We start with planning. 3.1 Definition of planning and forecasting. So what do we mean by planning? When we are talking about planning is basically setting up objectives and coming up with courses of action to achieve those objectives. Remember when we were discussing about management process, and we said that in the start of the year, organizations always plan for the year ahead. In the start of every month, organizations always plan for the month ahead. So when you are talking about planning, it's basically you are setting up objectives. You are coming up with what you are to achieve in this particular period, and then laying out courses of action in order to achieve those objectives. So when you're talking about planning, is a process which we use to see our goals and determine the means to achieve them. What are the goals are we going to achieve? We set those goals, and then we come up with ways, we come up with means of achieving those objectives. And one of the things is setting goals and come up with ways of achieving them. Now, one of the very critical issues is that when we are doing planning, we always scan the environment. We'll always scan the environment, both external and internal, in order for us to be able to ensure that we set realistic plans. If you are talking about going to town, you scan the environment at this particular period, at this particular time. What is the traffic like? If you are talking about planning for the organization, you scan the environment. What is the economic environment prevailing? What are my competitors doing? What are my rivals doing? How is the business environment conducive? You scan the environment in order to come up with goals, in order to come up with realistic objectives. For instance, right now, the world is undergoing corona pandemic. Businesses are actually planning on how to survive, not to make profits. So you can't be talking about making profits when the other businesses are undergoing challenges because of the economic environment. So when you're talking about planning, you set plans, but for you to set plans, you have to scan the environment in order to ensure that your plans are realistic. Even when you're talking about plans being realistic, remember, after you have set those realistic goals, you will need to come up with ways in achieving them. Now, it is those ways which will be determined by the scanning of the environment. You want to reach to town within 30 minutes. You have scanned the environment, you find that there is always traffic. So which road are you going to use in order for you to arrive at town within time? You have scanned the environment, you are saying, we have been selling school uniforms. But due to the coronavirus, there is a huge demand for personal protective equipment. So you move from making school uniform to making PPEs, personal protective equipment. And those are the objectives we are talking about. Those are the scanning of the environment we are simply talking about. Now, that is about planning. Now, when it comes to forecasting, what is forecasting? Because we are required, 3.1 requires us, we define planning and forecasting. So what is forecasting? How do you forecast? And forecasting is basically prediction. You predict what is likely to happen. For instance, at this particular period, there are people who forecasted very long time ago. When they saw that there is a pandemic and it's causing havoc in China, then later in Europe, most of the organizations probably forecasted we will require this. So by the time the corona was arriving, they had already forecasted and started preparing. The day corona was announced in Kenya, that day, because it was announced around 11-12 noon, by 2 p.m., there were people who were selling masks in town. Where did these masks come from? By the time it was being announced, the following day, there were people who were making sanitizers and sanitizers. What is that? Because you are forecasting. Based on this information, this will be what will be required. The market will require this. Based on this, my business will only survive if it approaches this. Because you are forecasting, trying to see, predicting changing conditions and future events that may significantly affect the business of an organization. What is it that is likely to affect the organization? There is a huge population. Population is increasing. So we will require this kind of goods and services. The world is moving away. Remember, like now, there was this company called Kodak, which had a very huge market in films and photograph. But these guys did not predict, because when there was phones were getting when phones came, and remember, phones were changing the world. They were changing the way people were socializing, the way people were living, and phones came with cameras. But this company did not predict that with the advent of mobile phones, the market will not require cameras. The market will not require to take photos. Photos will be taken by phones. So there was no prediction. And you see, when you don't forecast, definitely, because change will happen. Change itself will happen, but you have not forecasted. So you will be driven out of the market. So forecasting is simply the process of predicting conditions and future events that may significantly affect the business of an organization. Forecasting is the process of predicting changing conditions and future events that may significantly affect the business of an organization. Now, another key thing you have to know about forecasting. Forecasting is a decision-making tool used by many businesses to help in budgeting, to help in planning and estimating future growth. So you are predicted this will be required. The market will not require this kind of good. So you use that prediction in budget making. Use that prediction forecasting in planning. Use that in estimating future growth. In estimating future growth. In the simplest terms, forecasting is an attempt to predict future outcomes. In the simplest terms, forecasting is the attempt to predict future outcomes based on past events and management insights. Forecasting is the decision-making tool used by many businesses to help in budgeting, planning, and estimating future growth. In the simple terms, forecasting is the attempt to predict future outcomes based on past events and management insights. Now, probably we can talk about forecasting. Aspects of forecasting can be statistical or judgmental forecasting. Statistical or judgmental. When we are talking about statistical, we are talking about simply using statistics, using facts, using data collected. You collect data. For instance, you say the coronavirus cases, confirmed cases are this. Yesterday it was this. Last week it was this. Last month it was this. Now you are using those facts in order to predict what will happen. You are forecasting what is likely to happen based on the statistical facts, or based on statistical data. Now, judgmental forecasting is whereby you use your instincts. Something tells you something in your mind. You use your instincts in order to arrive at decisions. Now, in business, you can observe things. You can just observe. And then, based on that observation, you come up with a forecast because you have observed. Now, it is more critical for businesses to forecast using data because it is accurate. Most of the forecasting that is done using statistical data is always, in the most cases, it's always accurate. But the best is where you use both methods. Both judgmental and statistical. And in other ways, you will find it is called quantitative. Quantitative means using figures, facts, numbers. So you better do forecasting using numbers, quantitative and judgmental. So I think that is the end of 3.1 definition of planning and definition of forecasting. That is the end of 3.1 definition of planning and forecasting. So we can look at quickly at 3.2 elements of planning. Elements of planning. Elements 3.2 elements of planning process. Now, number one is planning process is an intellectual process. Planning is an intellectual process whereby it requires the use of intellect. It requires the use of intellect. You use ability. You use expertise. You use knowledge in order to ensure that the plans that you come up are not so we were saying planning is an intellectual process. Now, when we are talking about an intellectual process, we simply mean that planning involves rationality. When you are talking about rational, we simply mean that you use your ability to make in order to ensure that you adopt the plan that where you benefit most, and you use intellect, you use ability, you use expertise, you use knowledge. It is a mental exercise in order to ensure that you arrive at the best decision possible. It is a mental process. It is an intellectual process. It requires mental disposition of thinking. You think through the plans. You think through. And then you, based on those alternative plans, you come with the best alternative that will maximize your benefit and minimize your costs. Number 2, planning is goal-oriented. You are aiming at a specific objective. Goal-oriented. You are aiming at a specific objective. If you are talking about the plans of the organization, it may be to increase market share from 15% to 20%. It may be to minimize costs by 20%. It may be to increase profits. It may be to establish another 10 branches. It is goal-oriented. You are planning based on the objectives. You are planning based on the goals of the organization. Number 3 is planning is a primary function. It's a primary function. And when you are talking about primary function, we simply mean that planning is the first function of management. It's the first function. And probably it may not be talking about management. But in everything you undergo, anything that you want to do, planning is the most and is the first critical function. So it is a primary function. Is the most basic and primary function of management. It occupies the first place and precedes all other functions of management. You can't organize without planning. You can't coordinate without planning. Planning is very critical. Number 4 is that planning is uniform. Uniformity. It's uniformity. When you talk about planning being uniformity, what do we really mean? We really mean that if this is an organization has objectives, strategic objectives. We want to increase our market share from 15% to 20%. That is at the top management level. All the other departments, when they are coming up plans, they are making those plans based on the objective of the organization. We are talking about a subsection. We are talking about a branch. We are talking about a department. The plans should be going towards one objective. If you are talking about digitizing operations, that is the objective of the organization. That is the objective of the top management. Even at the lowest level, the objective should be to digitize the operations. So the plans there at the subsection should be aiming at digitizing operations, because it is a uniform. It must be uniform. We can't have this department planning on this direction and this other department going on this direction. No, that is not the best. It cannot be. It cannot happen in a business enterprise, in an organizational setup. So planning should be uniform. Another key element of planning is that planning is a continuous process. Planning is a continuous process. We don't stop. It continues. Where we left yesterday is where we are going to start today. Where we left last year is where we will pick it. It is a continuous process. You don't stop. You don't stop. Another thing, continuous flexibility. Plans should not be rigid. Plans should not be rigid. They should be flexible. You had planned to do this, but since probably because of other external factors that are beyond your control, you find that plan is invisible. You can't be able to achieve it. So what do? You should change your plans. You should adopt to plan B. Right. The other element of planning, is that planning is precision. They should be accurate. They should be accurate. They should be based on accuracy, exact definiteness, clear and concise. I will do this. I will go to town, go for work. From work, I will go to class. From class, I will go do shopping. From shopping, I will go home. Definite. This should not be, do I go to class or either I go to work? No. Precision. Planning should also be feasible. Feasible. Something that can be attained. Something that can be achieved. It should be feasible. You can't say the organization will double its profit. For instance, under these economic conditions, these difficult economic conditions, under the corona pandemic, then now you are coming up with your plans. You are seeing that the economic and the business environment is very harsh. The economic conditions are very harsh. Now you want to make plans, and then you say, we will double our profits. We will minimize our costs. Something that cannot be attained. Make realistic plans. Let your plans be feasible. Another point is that it involves alternatives. Alternative choices. Do we start a restaurant or do we start a bookshop? That is a business. Do we open a new branch or we close the existing ones? If we are to open a new branch, we need to open a new branch. Where do we open them? Do we open them at on Moi Avenue? Do we open them at Kenyatta Avenue? Do we open them at Haile Selassie Avenue? We want to venture outside Kenya. We want to go to the international market, in the African market. We open a branch in Tanzania, or do we open in Uganda? There is an alternative. You are coming up with, you are choosing from a wide source of alternatives. You are choosing from a wide source of alternatives. Then another thing is that planning involves efficiency. You must be efficient when you are planning. You must be efficient. And then the other one is, we are talking about interdependence. Remember, if you are talking about departments, they interdepend with one another. So there should be interdependence when you are coming up with plans. Now, having said that, I think that is all about elements of planning process. We can go to 3.3 types of plans. Types of plans. Types of plans. So, how many types of plans do we have? How many types of plans do we have? And essentially, most of the experts in business management agree that we have 4 types of plans. 4 types of plans. We have what we call strategic or general plans. We have what we call tactical plans. We have what we call operational plans. And then contingency plans. So what do we mean by strategic or general plans? When you are talking about strategic or general plans, we are simply talking about plans of the organization as a whole. Plan of the organization as a whole. And here, obviously, we can write several things here. Strategic plans. Those are plans of the organization as a whole. Plans of the organization as a whole. We are also talking about long-term plans. We are also talking about the vision of the organization. So, these are plans which are based on the long-term plans of the organization. These are plans based on the vision of the organization. They are looking at the organization as a whole. If you are talking about Equity Bank, what is the plan of Equity Group? What is the plan of KCB Group? What does it require? Where does it see itself in 5 years' time? Those are the strategic plans we are talking about. Plans at the highest level, where the top management comes up with the plans of the organization. Now, they have said, based on the environment we are facing, we will digitize our businesses. We will expand our business to the rest of Africa. That's our strategic plans. Now, having arrived at that strategic plans, now we go to the next one where we call tactical plans. Where now the smaller businesses under the group of companies can now be able to come up with tactics on how to achieve the plans that were set by the top management. So, being guided by the strategic plans, they will come up with tactics of how to achieve those plans. Specific tactics on how to achieve those plans. And now you find that they are able to derive the tactics they are going to use, the tactics they are going to employ in order to achieve those plans. And those what we are calling tactic plans. We may be talking about expanding. So we open a branch in Mandera, we open a branch in Wajir, we open a branch in Machakos, we open a branch in, let's say, Kisumu. Because the strategy of the organization, let's say the strategy of KCB, is basically to expansion, and to drive market growth, to ensure that we capture market share. So you have open a branch in Mandera. Now, the branch in Mandera will need to come up with the tactical plans, because at that level is where we are talking about now tactical plans. Mandera is characterized by people who profess Muslim faith. Now, financial products of Christians is different from Muslim products. According to the Muslim faith, you don't charge loans interests. Loans are not charged interest because that is against their faith. Now, the products for Mandera will be different for products for Machakos. Because in Machakos, most of them are Christians. They have no problem with loans where interest is charged. But now in Mandera, they will find it difficult to sell because they don't agree based on their Muslim faith. So, Mandera branch will come up with tactical plans based on their environment, but being guided by the national objective, being guided by the strategic plan of KCB. Machakos, likewise, will also come with tactical plans based on the environment they are operating in. Now, those are what we call what? Tactical plans. Now, going further, based on those tactical plans, now we have what we call operational plans. Operational plans. And now, these operational plans are what the specific activities of departments. Remember, we talked about KCB group. We went to branches. This was Mandera, Machakos, Wajir, and so on. Now, under Mandera branch, there is sales department, there is operations department, there is services department. Now, here at this level is what we call strategic. At this level is what we call tactical plans. At this level is what we're calling operational plans. So each department will arrive at what are we likely to do? What are we expected to do? These guys are guided by the plans, by the tactical plans. The tactical plans are themselves guided by the strategic plans. And now you see that there is synergy in the organization. There is synergy in the organization. So, sit at the bottom of the total pile. They are plans that are made by the frontline low-level managers. Operational plans are the plans that are made by frontline or low-level managers. Operational plans are focused on the specific procedures and processes that occur within the lowest levels of the organization. So these are the levels we are talking about. Now, the fourth plan is what we call contingency plans. And the contingency plans is not a level, rather is that you may find that you wanted to achieve this, but now it has failed. So what do? You must have a plan B. And that plan B is what we are calling contingency plans. To cater for unseen emergencies. When your other plans have failed, you adopt contingency plans. You had planned, we'll open a new branch in Machakos, but you find that the business environment in Machakos does not allow you to open a new branch. So what do? You come up with a plan to go and open that branch in Kitui. You wanted to capture the market in Lower Eastern. So if you have failed to open in Machakos, you can still go to Kitui. You wanted to open a branch in Uganda, but Uganda, probably the organization has not been licensed. The regulator has refused to give you license. So what do? You don't shelve the plan altogether. You can shift to that branch to Tanzania. And those are what we are calling contingency plans. If the plans that you have made have failed, you come up with new plans. You come up with something to take a position of what you had planned. And I think that is all about type of plans. That is all about type of plans. Probably we can discuss another subtopic, and then we'll do the next remaining chapter in the next video. 3.4, importance of plans. Why is it important for us? Why is it important for organizations to have plans? Why is it important for organizations to have plans? Look at it this way. An organization that does not have plans, how does it survive in the business environment? How are its operations? Is it able to achieve its plans? Is it able to achieve its organizational objectives? Even your own individual life, if you don't have plans, what happens? So based on that, what are the importance of plan? Number one, it provides basis for decision. Basis for decision. When you have plans, you can be able to make decisions. Because you are guided. When you are talking about decision, you are making decisions guided by your plans. You plan to buy a car. You plan to buy a car. But then you get some money. So how do you spend that money? Because you know you want to acquire a car. So you must save. You are making decisions, yes, on the use of money. You have time, you had the plan to go to class, you had the plan to go to work, you go to class and do some shopping. So how do you allocate time? You are making decisions. How do you allocate time? Based on the plans that you have made. An organization plans to digitize its operations. And now it has some money. So how does it make decisions? For it to digitize, it requires computers. So it will go and buy computers based on the plans it has. If you are talking about employing people, you will employ people who are ICT, who have ICT knowledge, who have ICT expertise, because you have plans to digitize what? To digitize the operations. So it provides basis for decision. Number two, it helps in focusing attention to objectives. Attention to objectives. Because you have made plans and you have set up objectives. Remember what we said. What is planning? Planning is setting up objectives and coming up with ways in achieving those objectives. Now, when you make plans, it enables you to concentrate on the objectives. You can't deviate because you have plans. You are focusing your attention on those objectives. I have planned to pass exams. So how do I pass exams? By attending classes. So you don't deviate from attending classes. You don't deviate from revising because there are specific objectives that you have set. Number 3 is it minimizes, helps in minimizing uncertainty and risk. Because you have come up with the plans whereby you assessed the alternatives, you assess the possible choices. Remember when we are talking about elements, we have talked about making a choice between several. So, if you have made plans, you are able to minimize risk. You are able to minimize uncertainties. Because something, you have looked at all the possible scenarios and come up with the best. So you are able to. Look, for instance, we are talking about coronavirus. Now, if the government has planned, will it be worried about the increase in corona cases? No, it wouldn't, because it has planned. It has several beds, ICU beds. It has several oxygen machines. It has several ventilators. Already it has planned, so it means minimizing risk. It is minimizing uncertainty. Planning also helps in adapting changes. You are able to adapt to changes easily because you are planned. You are able to adapt to changes because you are planned. Another importance of planning is that it secures an economy. Planning focuses on efficiency and economy in operations. A plan is a course of action that can make organization to the objectives of the minimizing costs. Another very key importance of planning is that it helps in coordination. When you are planned, you can be able to coordinate very effectively. Look, for instance, when you are planned on this employee Y will be doing this, employee X will be doing this, employee Y will be doing this. We will be doing this in the first week of the month. Second week of the month will be doing this. The third week of the month will be doing this, and the fourth week of the month will be doing this. It helps in coordination. You are able to coordinate very effectively because already you are planned. Take, for instance, when you have not planned for your day, what happens? You wake up in the morning, you start doing washing. In the middle, you remember, I was to go and do pay school fees. I was to go and do this, and you find that there is confusion every now and then. Look at that, the context whereby we are talking about in the context of an organization, and the organization has no plans. In the middle of the month, already the year has started. Your arrivals are easily capturing your market. You are still wondering, what do we do? Do we start a new plant? Do we open a new branch? Do we close that branch? What do we do? Do we launch new products? And you find it's a confusion everywhere. You can't even coordinate your employees. The departments cannot be coordinated very well. And you are in problems. The organization is at risk in missing its targets because there is no planning. So when you do planning, it helps in coordination. Another key issue is makes control effective. So when you are talking about control, we are simply talking about guidelines and procedures. procedures. You can be able to procedures. Sorry. You can be able to follow to ensure that there is control in the organization when there are plans. You can be able to ensure that when there are plans, procedures, guidelines are being followed. The rules and regulations are being followed because there are plans. If you fail to plan, it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult. And one of the things is that, how do you measure performance if there is no plans? How do you measure performance? How do you know that the organization is on the right track in achieving its objectives, yet there are no plans? You can't. But when you have plans, by the third quarter we should have achieved this. By the second quarter we should have achieved this. You can be able to see. If the first by the end of the first quarter you are 70%. The second quarter you are 80%. You know we are increasing. But if there are no plans, how do you ensure that employees are working? How are you able to measure the performance of the employees? Then lastly, it increases organizational effectiveness. It increases organizational effectiveness. It ensures that the objectives of the organization in the context of given resources, you allocate the given resources, you are able to ensure that if you are talking about the employees, you can relate, this guy will work in this department, this guy will work in this department, this guy will work in this department. This department will have 5 computers, this one will have 5 computers, this one will have 6 computers. Effectiveness, there is effectiveness because indeed you had plans. Now, I think this marks the end of this video. This marks the end of the first video of planning. The other thing, there are 3 other subsections. We'll cover them in the next video. Thank you for watching. And kindly look for the other videos. And then don't forget, subscribe to my channel. Subscribe. It will be good. Bye.